All right, so we'll be doing a Friday update for you guys today. Take a look at where the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a handful of altcoin markets might be going. You guys are going to love it. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into Tech Path. Joining me, of course, is Mr. Aldo coming in from his time up north. Great to have you back.
Feels good to be back.
You're always traveling, man.
A little bit.
You're out there, you're running across, you're in Asia, you go, anyway.
Yeah.
You're always having fun. I like that. Evan, before we get started, I do want to thank our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital. If you guys are looking at getting into long-term holding of your crypto and you want to do it in a crypto IRA, which is a great tax benefit, make sure and jump over to itrustcapital.com. Of course, you can use our code down below. It's going to get you a $100 funding reward, and you will join 9 billion in transactions and over 200,000 accounts out there on iTrust Capital. So check it out. Use our link. As I said, it'll get you a $100 funding reward. Evan, let's jump into a couple of the news items today. One, of course, is breaking right here. Germany's government sells off the remainder of its Bitcoin holdings, totaling up 2.9 bill. So not a lot, comparison of what the size of Bitcoin's market cap is. And you look at this statement right here, I think people would look at it and say, Germany is going to look at this and say, a year from now, when Bitcoin could be 100 to 150, and just go, what have we done? What have we done?
I think so. Yeah, I do think so. Although that amount of money is not a lot to a government as big as Germany.
To a nation state.
Yeah.
When you look at the chart right now on Bitcoin and the current position, do you feel like we got a little bit more push down, or do you feel like this might be the last of the squeeze?
I'm pretty optimistic. When I look at the chart here, I see a lot of things that are similar to kind of last summer when we did see kind of a summer lull here on my chart. Where back right around August of 23, you pivoted around, you bounced around a little bit. And if you look here at these EMAs on the 2-day, see how they came gray and they came down? That was the majority of the pain was done. You had to wick down a little bit farther, but when I look at that comparatively, you see this anchor wave right there. Yep. We saw the same thing kind of confirm over here. So I think either you're gonna see a nice recovery upward, or we're gonna be due for some boringness, some range boundness, which you do kind of see that every summer. And if you look here, a lot of excitement, a little bit there, but we haven't really seen that real boringness that you do see typically every summer. You saw it back here too at the bottom. We are due for that. So I could see a lot of consolidation, a lot of boringness, and then potentially into the end of the year, into election, looking at November, December, or early next year, a recovery back up to 70K and then potentially making new all-time highs around 80K. Later this year, early next year. That's what I'm really looking at.
All right, so still very bullish then.
Generally, yeah.
All right, well, okay, so you look at that comparison to what's happening from a macro standpoint. A couple of things, we saw the CPI number came in very soft this week. And then after the PPI report, odds now went up on a September pivot from 90% to 98% potentially, for a pivot on an interest rate adjustment by the Fed. If that were to happen in September, what do you think crypto does?
I like those odds. I think it would be generally good for crypto. I mean, you may see a little bit of a pullback short term, as you typically do right when the Fed pivots, maybe for a few weeks. But I think October, November generally would be pretty bullish months. I mean, if you do look at September, let's be real, September is historically more of a bearish month for crypto, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. You know what I mean?
All right, so you look at the macro environment, the global environment, what we're seeing obviously with what happened with Germany and Mt. Gox here recently, so we've kind of got that behind us, or it feels like it has been behind us. Then you have other scenarios playing out into the space right now, mainly from the Mag 7. So Magnificent 7 erased a combined 600 billion of market cap. This was today. Comes as the S&P 500 just posted its worst daily performance. This is the first time we've really seen the S&P do a retraction. When you look at that, because that's been one of the things that I feel like has been propping up Wall Street in general, going into an election, how big of an impact does that have on crypto markets, do you feel?
Generally, we're going to follow the S&P 500 as we generally have, since kind of the inception of Bitcoin overall, with some quails here and there. And if you look at the S&P 500 chart right here, I'm not that bearish on it. I think that, you still have some, you look at the money flow still strong on the 10-hour continuation there. Your next fib level is going to be around 575. I do think you're generally going to continue with the S&P 500. Sure, there's going to be sell pressure here and there, but I generally think into the end of the year, you probably could see upwards of 600 even by the end of the year for the S&P 500. And I think, you're generally going to see the S&P 500 do well as Bitcoin continues to do well. It did, when we saw the first Bitcoin correction, the S&P 500 outperformed it during kind of this area, but I think they're going to start to follow more now. And the thing on Bitcoin here, this little trigger wave on the weekly, trigger wave to the, kind of that wave, a higher wave, which is really good. You could see a general, trajectory, and this is a long-term trajectory here, but this is your keys to around 140K. I think January of 2025 is way too optimistic. I think you would see more of a trajectory like this into middle to later of next year. So diminished returns a bit based on that in more of an extension. But I think this will follow the S&P 500, both of them,
so
for a good 2025. Yeah.
You've got Tom Lee, one of the leading analysts there on Wall Street. He talks about this quite a bit, of where the S&P could be by year end. If you look at my chart, I mean, right now we're trading at 56, so it's pretty much recovered from yesterday's downfall. And you look at where he's pointing out, which is around 58 to 5,900. That would be a significant move on the S&P, which is a lot of money flow coming back into the S&P as a whole. Sentiment is holding right here. I'm tending to agree with you, is that maybe this is still a bullish trend going forward for the S&P 500. With that being said, a couple other points I want to hit on here. JP Morgan EPS came in. This is basically earnings from the banks, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, Bank of New York Mellon, all beat estimates. So pretty much big banks are doing great right now. That continues to bolster up what's happening with the S&P 500. And of course, you've got Tesla coming in. So planning their delay, though, on the robo-taxi unveiling to October from August. So this was, Elon's been going on about this. August is the date. He rolls this out. Now it's October. I don't know if he's trying to buy time. Something's going on. I want to play a clip for you, though, real quick. This is Kathy Wood talking a little bit more about it.
You have a 16%, based on what Rebecca said, 16% of the flagship ARK innovation is Tesla. I mean, are you looking to increase that weighting? Is there a maximum cap within the strategy for a single stock?
Now, normally, we will start taking profits well before 16%. But the reason we have let Tesla run, we've taken some profits, but let it run to a higher percentage than normal of the portfolio, is because that Tesla is about to give us a lot more information about the robo-taxi opportunity. Now, originally, August 8th, so 8/8, and I know in China that's a very lucky number. And we thought that that's why Elon chose the date. At first it was August 8th. Today they pushed it to October. And that just tells me that we're probably getting closer to this robo-taxi opportunity. Not further away. He wants to show us something more, I think, awe-inspiring than we might have seen on August 8th, and he believes it's possible by October.
All right, so as you can see there on that clip, I think this is Kathy Wood, of course, drinking the Kool-Aid a bit. I kind of look at it this way. You look at FSD, the rollout of FSD, the delay of FSD, then the re-rollout, then the delay of FSD. I get all of that, and I've been in and out of Teslas for the last 5 years, cars. And what I don't trust right now is that edgy technology. If robotaxi does, if Elon drops something in October, I will be pleasantly surprised. I just don't think it will happen. But if you look at the stock, he may just be grandstanding to look at a stock run here. What do you think, and what do the charts show?
So when you look at Tesla's chart right here on the monthly, it does look very similar to kind of how we recovered in early kind of 2023, deep anchor wave right there. That brought us up a lot. I traced it from here. If we repeat something similar to there from this correction in our 2024 correction, you could be looking at playing around with all-time highs or making a new all-time high either later this year or early next year. I think Tesla may follow in the footsteps of what we saw with Amazon, Apple, and may eventually make new all-time highs. I think there's a lot of, a real lot of trajectory here. And I mean, a year or two down the line, you may see a $600 Tesla potentially. There's a lot, it looks good. I mean, you look at that 2 week, that money flow is coming up. There's nothing that looks bad, right now. And the last thing I'll show you here on the weekly, I mean, you're just coming into the green right here. This one didn't work well, but usually the second time it works a lot better. I think there's more more to go here.
Well, Tesla usually moves on news, and if you look at Chinese EV sales, that's the number one market for EV growth. You also look, if he doesn't roll out something in October on robotaxi, hopefully he's got something big planned. If he does, that will be a significant role. And then, of course, he just came in on his most recent quarterly deliveries positively over the previous quarter. So those were all good news. So, and hence, we've seen Tesla kind of move on. I want to jump over to Ethereum real quick. Nate Garassi here saying that's enough politics. When are we going to see the spot ETF? And of course, I agree with him. But I don't know if I'm going to agree with him in reference to possibly it being next week. He states here it's been awfully quiet, guessing we'll hear something tomorrow regarding the SEC timeline, that being today. So nothing yet so far. ETH as a whole, do you like ETH where it is right now? And how would you play this out?
I like it a lot. I mean, it can wick down a little bit lower. I think it's similar to that situation in Bitcoin. If we look at the 3-day here, what happened last summer is you came into the red, you came down a bit, you had your drop down just like we saw right here, that drop down. Then you got that deep anchor wave. You had some wicks a little bit lower than that bottom, but you recovered once you got to October and did a lot of stuff right there. So if we look at that, you're forming that kind of that deep anchor wave, that those RSIs look good. So I think you're either going to be range bound for a few months and then break upward, or you're just going to continue to break upward here and have a nice recovery. I think, similar to Bitcoin, you're generally looking at into, election into end of the year. Hopefully not a new we got to go all the way up to 5,000 for that new all-time high, almost 4,800. But you could see that potentially, December, January of next year, a general trajectory like this. Now, it would not surprise me at all is if you bore a lot of people away, do this until the end of August, then you jump up. That's what I'm really looking at right here. So overall, I do like it. I wouldn't be too afraid about, a lot of people are afraid about the high time frames like the 2-week, but just look at the last time, we had the 2-week when you came into the green. You had a lot more here. It wasn't just like, some people are afraid we're just going to come with that money flow and go right into the red. I think that's pretty unlikely. As long as you believe the 4-year cycle is going to stay intact, I think it's very likely that we have some more here.
With Ethereum, I think the scenario right now really plays in on the ETF, because the ETF is really going to be, I think, the lifeblood of not only people learning about it, but being able to go in and maybe make some inflows on it. Even though we still have a lot of ETH off exchanges, then you have a tremendous amount of ETH staked, which is going to be a supply shock to a certain extent of where this is going. If you look at our own indicator now, which, by the way, guys, if you're in our MSI, this indicator is now available to you. So you'll be getting an email to where you can actually load this indicator into TradingView. But even our own sentiment's still soft on Ethereum right now. I think it's still in a position waiting for this ETH ETF. Kind of like what you're talking about in terms of some sideways, possibly range-bound activity over the next
And that's
few.
Coming soon, and that could be a good catalyst.
Well, it could be.
Yeah.
It could be. I think it's still a question mark. Late July was kind of our estimate, but this thing rolls into August. I think that's a problem for Ethereum as a whole. I don't necessarily say that it will, but if it does, it'll be a very big question mark going forward. What's going on with Uniswap, Evan? Because there is some weird stuff happening. I wanted to jump into a couple of, here we go. Whale bought almost 243,000 in Uni tokens, signaling potential bullish movement. Uniswap targeted now on a potential 44% surge. I don't know, is this one of those that also could be fueled by the ETH ETF along with a variety of other altcoins that obviously will get sensitive around this? Where are you trading, and are you trading Uniswap?
I'm not in a trade on it right now, but I don't have a problem with the chart. I do not have a problem with how this looks. I mean, we look at right here, just basic, making higher lows, sticking to the trend line. You retested kind of this big area, got a nice jump above it, and now you're hopefully making a higher low right here, which looks really good. You may be forming, it's a little premature, but you may be forming a nice trigger wave on the weekly, which would complement that previous trigger wave, and we still haven't gone below that low. So I do like how that looks. If we could break up, out of this area, just traditional TA would tell you that you have a target, which is going to be right around $20, which I think you're inevitably going to get to, at some point here, hopefully end of year or early next year. I'm looking at $20, maybe even sooner. Altcoins as a whole look pretty good. If we look at the 2-day, deeper anchor wave with the money flow, or you could argue trigger wave to the anchor wave, that looks pretty good. I don't have a problem with this at all. I think it's going to continue to do well.
So looking good right now. What do you make of this on Solana? Because this is, if it follows Ethereum, there's an analyst out there right now that is pointing to a $2,800 target. What is your thought on this? Do you like that or you don't like it?
The 28,000.
Yeah, the 2,800.
Oh man, oh man. I know it's going to break some hearts, but I don't think Solana is going to get to 2,800 anytime soon. It's going to take a few years at least, but you could get somewhere. You could get somewhere, and I mean,
Where do they get these crazy numbers?
I don't know. It just 10x from the previous all-time high or whatever.
Maybe.
Could be that, I think.
Couple of things they hit on. Candlestick arrangement. They're saying 155 and later 190. And then even though it gets a lot of selling pressure, they think they're going to see a big move up based on some of the drawdown that we've seen in past history. So what do you think in terms of the current chart?
So I like what we're looking at right here. If we zoom in just a little bit, just basic TA, you had one low here, you're making a higher low, that looks pretty good. If you are to break out of this double bottom right here, you're gonna have a technical target right around 262, which is a pretty big area. If we, previous all-time high, potentially making a new all-time high from that 2021 high. When could you hit that? I think it's going to take some time, some time meaning early next year, later this year.
Okay.
A trajectory like this, I could see Q1 of Q2 next year, potentially making that all-time high. Once you break above there, which I think you got a good shot of doing, the big place you're looking at is 400, which could be the market high of this bull run. If you could break above there, we're looking at 655. I mean, I know there's people that are talking about 1,000, 2,000, 2,800. I mean, I would be the person to start getting out around 400. Nice 3 or 4x, I think, is more than enough to ask for here.
Where would you go after that?
Where would I go
Yeah.
after?
I mean, of course, timing, I get it, but would you start to just kind of pocket away Ethereum or what?
I would, well, at that point in 2025, I would be putting into safer assets, paying off the mortgage, things of that nature.
Stepping back into real
taking that
estate,
money,
maybe.
S&P 500, safer assets at that point. But it does look good. The last thing, the 3-day, I mean, it does look really good right here.
All right, Avalanche made a big move. They're decreasing their staking requirements, so this is going to be basically a reduction in cost of their subnet. Simply meaning, for those of you who follow us, we talk about Avalanche a lot. This is just going to make it cheaper for you to operate within a subnet, which I guess now is an L1, maybe as they rebrand. But this could be good for Avalanche. Question is it good for the token price?
I think it will be. I think it definitely will be.
What do you like right now on the chart?
Similar to
Give
lot
me a
of
price target.
A price target?
Yeah.
For next, so the big price target's $230 and the higher end, $368. These are pretty big fib levels. And if we repeat the trajectory that we saw from last October, you had your drop down, you hit kind of this big area right here, right around $21. You have one trajectory that's back up to 150, I believe. That's the previous all-time high. You break above there, your big fib level's 220 and then 360. So this is one of them that from where we are right now, the $25 range could make potentially, 8x to 12x on the high range of what we're looking at. And trigger wave forming on the 2-week, a lot of things look good to repeat that kind of trajectory. I think it's going to take longer than it took here or be an extended situation, but things look decent. Now, don't get too afraid if we do the scenario that I was talking about earlier. If we bounce around, you make some lower lows or here, bounce around, then in September, October, November, then we start coming up. So it could take some time, but I think there's a high likelihood that this is going to do well in the coming 6 to 12 months, 6 to 18 months even.
I like your analysis on Avalanche. I can't believe that you are so bullish on this. This is crazy.
We've talked about these areas. We've talked about that $21 area, hit it perfectly. So
totally agree. Chainlink, a lot of people looking at this right now have been driving in on this. I know quite a bit of our own Diamond Circle have been acquiring quite a bit of Chainlink over the past bit. We're now on potentially seeing an 8-month high as price now starts a little bit of a rebound. A couple of points within this. Around 1250 is where it was trading, which this price dropped about 18% in the last month. But there is a little bit showing right now that we could see some movement coming on this. So a lot of link holders are accumulating right now on Chainlink. What do you think?
I think it's good. I think Chainlink's going to continue to do well with like a lot of other altcoins. If you look right here, money flow is coming up. Little trigger wave, it's a little tiny little trigger wave there, potentially forming on the 2-week. That could be momentous. If we look at the weekly, that trigger wave didn't really play out. You did make a lower low, but sometimes, you scare away a lot of people like this, then the next one really brings you up. And if you look at like the 5-day here, you're about to get a nice bull div, and you don't see those too often. I mean, I'm just trying to look at the last time we saw a situation like that. oh man, it's been a long, long time. Maybe you could argue a little bit back in like January of 2020. So I think we have a long kind of trajectory upward from here. And if you look at some point, I would say probably mid to later next year, $80 could be a big point. And if you repeat kind of this trajectory, which it's like you had your bull run, intermission right here, your summer lull, and you repeat that situation, you can get up by next year, probably early next year, potentially close to those all-time highs. And then after those all-time highs would be what you would see in 2025, potentially up to $80, maybe even 100, who knows.
All right, so you're calling for a 7x on Chainlink, a 4x on Solana.
I think Chainlink has more trajectory.
More
yeah,
run.
Chainlink and Avalanche are definitely more, I would think.
All right, let's take a look. Let's wrap up here a little bit. I want to look at a couple of things. Render, of course, had some FUD. Fake news coming out on the Render dump. This was talking about a delist. That was not necessarily the case. There is a transitioning going over, which is the Render token, rebranding as Render. So when you look at Render, and of course everything that's been happening with NVIDIA, we look at Near Protocol, many of those kinds of cloud compute type projects. How do you like Render right now?
Render is a little bit more concerning than some other coins, but there still is some good stuff here. If we look here at this 2-day, look at this money flow back in August of 23, hitting that same area, about to get a bull div printing relatively soon. And if you look at that area, look at that. I mean, that trajectory upward was just incredible. And that's what I think you may see some situation like this kind of repeat, assuming that we do hit a bottom here, but it is, what I'll show you in a second is there are some concerns. That could be up to $55. So there is a potential for a 10x here. I could see, on the high end, that would be the absolute high end, but I'm looking more for 18. We'll talk about $18, $20. Those are the big places we want to look at first. But overall, it is a little concerning on the daily. You do have the yellow X potentially dropping down farther, but if you look at that money flow in that 2-day, like I mentioned, there's a good trajectory to continue forward here. I wouldn't put all my eggs into Render, but I think it's good to have at least a small position in it.
Yeah, okay, all right. Any tokens that you're watching right now that you're thinking, hey, this could be on the move, maybe I'm trying to position in outside of the ones that we've talked about today?
The one that I've been looking at is probably MATIC. I've been looking at, and if we look at the MATIC chart, big area on the, if we go out right here, you just look at this chart area right here, right around 50 cents, and I think we should be able to keep that area, just a giant area. You look down below, and if we look at the weekly here, you may get a nice anchor wave and potentially jump all the way back up to $1.20. So a double, if we follow this trajectory here, you can get potentially a double into early next year. And then if you break out of this whole wedge, this whole area right here, let me just give you a technical target. It's going to be a pretty high one. I would go from here to here. That's the old all-time highs that you would potentially see Q2 of next year. And then potentially if you could break up out of that whole area, you would be looking at, let's just, the last thing I'll show you, you would be probably looking at on the high end a $10 MATIC maybe. That would be a lot from here. That would be a real lot. But the big area is going to be the 10x, which is right around, fib level is at $4.60. So yeah.
Interesting. All right, Evan, you still have your trading group going
I do,
on?
yep.
All right.
On
and we still have our discount, right?
Yeah, discount code is Paul Barron on evanaldo.com. There is a free course and a paid course as well on evanaldo.com.
You guys make sure and hit it out. Evan does some great live streams, so follow him over on YouTube, of course. Yep. And if you are not in the Diamond Circle, make sure and get in that now. It's a great place to get additional content. You can, of course, just visit PBN, which is Paul Barron Network. And what we're doing over there is we've got quite a few things happening for new content. We have our new community tabs, so you can get in there and start communicating with other Diamond Circle members. All that's available to you guys. Make sure and visit that. And of course, last up, don't forget to follow me out there on X, just at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.